All right, guys, welcome back to another episode. So today we are checking out some more Thomas Sowell, in which we thoroughly enjoyed the previous discussion, and
slavery.
It was on slavery, so y'all can go back and check out that video. It was very interesting. We learned a lot, but I seen that there was another video that he had, which was called "The Worst American President Ever." Was so loved, and so I do want to check this out because I'm kind of curious of who this is and why he feels the way he does. I kind of have an idea who I think it is, but I just want to check it out. So anything you want to add, baby?
Nope.
All right, let's go ahead and jump into it, y'all. Leave your thoughts down below in the comment section. Let's go.
A few clips of the President of the United States delivering his State of the Union address earlier this year. Clip number 1.
Higher education can't be a luxury. It is an economic imperative that every family in America should be able to afford.
Higher education, an imperative. All he's asking is that all young Americans should have the same opportunity to get a really good education that Tom Sowell had. Tom?
I love the use of the word opportunity. You know, I had as much opportunity to become an NBA star as Michael Jordan had. It just happens that there was some difference in skill. And so the same thing with education. There is no point trying to run people through institutions that they have very little interest in and that they may not be suited for. In fact, I would argue that one of the problems of American education is you have a lot of people in college who have no interest in what a college is supposed to be. Nor is there any reason why they should.
And so the
What do you think? I mean, this is...
He's saying the quiet part out loud.
This is definitely the quiet part out loud. Because the thing of it is that we're kind of conditioned and we're brainwashed to go to college. College isn't for everyone.
Right.
And what happens a lot, what I seen a lot while people were in college, and this is my case as well, when you got there, you didn't know what you wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And you kind of found your way later on, but there were so many people that didn't know what to do. They didn't want to do it. And the only reason why they went to college...
Because they were supposed to.
Well, either because the TV told them they were supposed
to.
The TV told them they were supposed to. Their parents told them they were supposed to. Or they seen the party videos and they wanted to go to college for the party experience and not to get an education. Now, me, I wanted to go to college because I wanted to get an education. I just wasn't sure what it was. But when I figured out what it was, the career path I wanted to pursue was obsolete. And so I decided to change. And then I found my way. Anyway, let's continue.
In fact, I would argue that one of the problems of American education is you have a lot of people in college who have no interest in what a college is supposed to be. Nor is there any reason why they should.
And so
So you water down the education of the people who are there to get an education because of the people who are not there for that purpose and who are and who you're trying to appease in some way.
And is the impulse that we just saw of Barack Obama and his supporters to constantly more and more people run them through college, and that's what? That's to enhance the standing of intellectuals in society, to teach more and more Americans to defer to intellectuals? Is that part of what's going on?
It's to win votes, frankly.
All right. Straightforward as that. President Obama once again.
I will not cede the wind or solar or battery industry to China or Germany because we refuse to make the same commitment here. We've subsidized oil companies for a century. That's long enough.
This is pre-Solyndra, of course.
Pre-Solyndra. Tom?
You know, this notion of picking out something and calling it a good thing, like education or affordable housing or whatever it might be, everything is a matter of trade-off. What did the band say there?
That he will not cede wind or solar or the battery industry to China or Germany because we refuse to make the same commitment.
It's amazing that here is a man talking about 5 different industries, in none of which he has the slightest experience. You know, But because he has these degrees from the places you mentioned, he thinks, and people have told him how clever he is, he now thinks that he can do this.
So can you
No human being on this planet could do this.
Can you explain, Tom, the particular appeal to intellectuals of the kind you describe here, of the green movement, of the environmental movement?
Oh, it shows them again in the role they relish. They're the wise and noble, forcing the rest of us poor dummies to do what's right, even though we don't want to.
So it's what your old friend Karl Marx would have described as the will to power.
Yes.
All right. You don't want to cut them a little slack. I mean, you're just saying it's ego and pride and vanity.
Yes.
All right.
Well,
Okay.
as far as like being more green, I think we should, but I think it's fake because like even like the government now, they said we all have to have electric cars by a certain time, or car companies have to have electric cars by
Right.
a certain time, and we're getting away from gas vehicles, but then we don't have the infrastructure for
Right.
the electrical vehicles.
Right.
But then come to find out that the electrical vehicles, they use up a lot of electricity,
Right.
which in turn, is not clean electricity.
Yeah.
It's coming from like coal-powered
Right.
electricity. So it's like everything's a farce anyway.
Right. Yeah.
So is it just a talking point?
I in a way, I feel like it is, and they want
sounds
to, and
good.
it sounds good, and they want to create this illusion of clean energy, and heading towards that path. But it's almost like look over here and not what's going on over here.
Yeah.
So.
Once again, the President of the United States.
Tax reform should follow the Buffett rule. If you make more than $1 million a year, you should not pay less than 30% in taxes. And my Republican friend Tom Coburn is right. Washington should stop subsidizing millionaires. In fact, if you're earning $1 million a year, you shouldn't get special tax subsidies or deductions. On the other hand, if you make under $250,000 a year, like 98% of American families, your taxes shouldn't go up.
I agree.
I love it.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Tom?
When people keep their own money, that's called subsidizing them. I love it. That's the brilliance of intellectuals, that they can use words in such a malleable way that they can. I mean, Obama has an absolute talent for saying things that make no sense, but not only sound plausible, but inspiring. We're subsidizing the oil companies when they deduct the cost of doing business in order to arrive at the figure of how much net income they have. Everybody does that.
Right. So this notion, though, that if you're rich, you ought to pay more. Straightforward enough, no?
Should pay your fair
It is
share.
straightforward, but it's also straightforward nonsense.
Why is that?
People don't. They often speak of people who are rich as people who happen to have money.
Right.
Extremely few people happen to have money.
There aren't that many Rockefellers.
Well, but Rockefeller didn't happen to have money.
But his heirs happen to have it.
His heirs happen to
Right.
have money.
So you're drawing
Rockefeller reduced the cost of oil to a fraction of what it had been before him,
Right.
benefiting millions of people across the country. Therefore, they bought their oil from Rockefeller rather than from people who had more expensive ways of producing oil. For example, one of them being the use of tank cars on the railroad.
I don't know if
yeah,
I agree
yeah.
with
So
him on
I
this.
definitely don't agree with this
No.
because it's saying that although he lowered the cost of oil and he was able to get more people to purchase oil from him and create a substantially large pool of wealth, does that discount him from having to pay his fair share in taxes?
Right.
No.
It
Because
shouldn't.
for any other person who doesn't make a vast wealth of money, it's almost like the more money you make, you still have to pay taxes.
Right.
And so, yeah, I don't agree with this take.
No.
Roads. The progressives were livid that Rockefeller could ship his oil at a cheaper price than the other producers. It never occurred to them that Rockefeller shipped his oil in tank cars, which are a hell of a lot cheaper to transport than in barrels. I mean, we still measure oil in barrels today, but we ship it in tankers.
Right.
And that's how he became a multi-billionaire.
So we know from the study of economic history that wealthy people get wealthy by creating jobs, lowering prices of products. Rather than Bill Gates,
Not
the richest
all
man
of
in
them.
America, one of the richest men in the world, invented an entire industry that simply didn't. All right.
And I think this is what they would consider trickle-down economics.
There's nothing trickling down.
Well, now there's definitely not anything trickling down.
It's trickling up continuously.
Right, yeah.
We know all that, and we also know, as we mentioned earlier, that cutting taxes worked to spur economic growth in the 20s, again under John Kennedy in the 60s. Actually, it was Johnson who ended up, most of the tax cuts took place, let's call it under the 60s, and then again in Ronald Reagan in the 1980s.
And then George W. Bush.
And George W. Bush. So how is it that he can stand there in the face of this overwhelming evidence and be taken seriously? I'm not asking now about Barack Obama as an intellectual. I'm asking about the people listening to him.
That's the question of the hour. You have people who don't stop and think. You've had dumbed-down education. You've had propagandistic education, and people. What he's saying connects with all those kinds of things.
All right.
In fact, it goes the other way too. I was just doing some research on Detroit and its decline, and they kept raising the city income tax. And every time they raised the tax rate, the tax revenues went down. In 2008, Charles Gibson put this to Obama when he was a candidate. He said, "Why are you for raising the tax rate on the rich? Because you often get more revenue at lower tax rates than at the higher tax rates." And he said, "Well, it's a question of social justice." In other words, he doesn't really care about whether the government raises more revenues. If he can get people mad at the rich and they vote for him, then it's a success. Just as Coleman Young's policies in Detroit were a great political success for him. It ruined Detroit, but it didn't.
I just you and I happen to be reading on a similar subject. From 1950 to the present, two things happened. One was that the population of the United States of America roughly doubled, and the other was that the population of Detroit fell by roughly half.
Yes.
Unbelievable. All right. You write in Intellectuals in Society about the intellectuals' view of diplomacy and military affairs. One last clip of the President of the United States.
Thank heaven I'm sitting down.
Look at Iran. Through the power of our diplomacy, a world that was once divided about how to deal with Iran's nuclear program now stands as one. The regime is more isolated than ever before. Its leaders are faced with crippling sanctions. And as long as they shirk their responsibilities, this pressure will not relent.
Tom, will you sleep better tonight having heard that?
I may take a sleeping pill so I can forget it. This man has diddled with Iran to the point where the military people are saying, even if we decide to go in and bomb that place, they're so dispersed, so far underground, it's by no means clear that we can do it. The time when he was going through all this wonderful diplomacy he talks about was precisely the time when those things were put underground and dispersed. It's like when Hitler was arming, that as Churchill said, at one point, a memorandum could have stopped Hitler. Because the power was so lopsidedly on the side of the Western democracies. It's like they could say, stop rearming or else. And we can't do that with they diddled with Iran to the point where now we don't know.
Now, but there's something interesting about, to me, whereas with social policy, intellectuals tend to go for the policies that give them greater power. What greater power could an intellectual seek than military power, the power to blow things up? So
because they believe that again that their intellect is the unique factor that is going to save us, and to say that there are a bunch of military people are going to be more effective than doing all these terribly clever things that Obama is doing undermines their whole position.
I see. All right.
Very interesting, and I think he makes a great point as far as talking about with politicians. Like their platform becomes a popularity contest.
Definitely.
And so essentially when they're, and we've seen this as adults, when they're feeding us stories and lies about what they want to do or what they want to accomplish or how they're going to help the people. They're only doing it so that they can get votes. Because I think for us and what's important for our generation, when they were talking about eliminating student debt. And so Joe Biden would say things like, let's eliminate the student debt or student loan. And you don't really talk about the repercussions of what that would have on the economy, but you just say it just to say it so that people will be like, oh, I want to vote for you for that.
Right.
You know, and I think when you do that, it's very dangerous, especially when you end up with people who vote you in and then they're waiting for you to eliminate student debt.
Well, my thing is politicians really can't be trusted, like on either side. I've seen that now.
Yeah.
They say one thing and they do another. No one is for American people anymore.
Oh, man, that's
like,
what we see now.
I don't really believe that Americans run America.
That's what it seems like.
So
because we're in a space right now where all this money leaves the country, and we're turning around and we're looking at home and we're like, what's for us? When are the American people, when are we going to get our bailout? When are we going to get free education? When are we going to get free health care? When are we going to get secure borders?
It's not really free because you're paying for
it. Well,
you're paying
for it in your taxes.
Yeah.
I get that. So what I'm saying is that for other people, other countries, it's free for them because it's not coming from their
welfare
taxes.
Countries.
Yeah, welfare countries. It's coming from us. So it's free for them. You know, and so I think for many Americans, that's what we're like, yo, when is our free time coming? You know, but hey, trickle down economics and pay more tax or tax the middle class. But guys, leave your thoughts down below in the comment section. We'd love to continue this conversation as well as hear your thoughts on what you thought Dr. Sowell was talking about. Anyway, we're getting up out of here. As always, like, share, and subscribe. We'll see y'all next time. Take care. Peace.